of the 50-day, and that is a very simple buy indicator for the precious metals. Now, silver is just starting to see the same thing. Okay, so and someone's asking, what do you think of silver and gold? I think they look ready to turn. I would love to see some further evidence of this in terms of volume coming in. And I'm not sure. Let's take a look at the futures. If you look at the nearest futures contract, you're not really seeing any volume coming in there, and you're not really seeing any volume coming in. Well, you are seeing some here, and on a relatively a little better in the gold, but it seems to be arguing for more QE, you know, so of some sort. In fact, there was a Fed head today. I can't remember the name, but a very unusual name, not one you would expect to see for the Fed, but given it's generally, you know, all white males over age 50, I suppose. But somebody was saying that the Fed might raise their inflation target to greater than 2%. Now, those of you who live in the real world know that inflation is a lot more than 2%. In fact, I just noticed gas running up to $4.30 a gallon, but that's in California. In California, we had a refinery shut down, I believe, up in Richmond, California. I believe that's where it was. And I think there's only 2 refineries in the state because California, being so enlightened, doesn't want to admit, remains in denial about the fact that people in California use one heck of a lot of gas because we all drive cars, especially here in LA, but all the liberals don't want to admit that we need refineries so that we have a ready and available supply not too far away. So what we're having in California is $4.30 gas, thanks to the fact that we don't have any other refineries, and I think we're down to 1 right now, and that, or at least maybe if they're bringing the other one back online, you do get a pinch in supply in the short term. So, you know, that's what the wonderful world of liberals in denial driving around in SUVs with bumper stickers on the back that say "Think globally, act locally." Yeah. Anyways, but so, you know, all that's to say, I know I'm going off on another rant, but all that's to say is that there's a lot more inflation out there than the Fed is targeting. But that said, it tells you that these sort of lead-up comments that, oh, well, now we're going to target inflation higher than 2% in order to get employment back in line and going again, that argues for inflation, more obvious inflation, and that might be positive for the gold and the silver going forward. And indeed, we are starting to see just the bare rumblings of a possible turn. When we see it the way we look at it, you'll be the first to know. Let's see, some other stocks I'm just going to run through. CYNO, somebody's asking about cores, but I'm assuming that you heard us at the outset of this. Synoger is, you got a pocket pivot 3 days ago off the 10-day, so that's, you know, that would be a buy signal there. This is probably it's a viable gap up, but you notice how it comes in. But this is a biotech, and I don't think these guys make money. These guys make money, Dr. K?
They are making money. In fact, their earnings and their sales are looking pretty good.
That's
the only problem. The problem with this stock, I mean, everything looks really good about it. You know, that viable gap up, and then, you know, that, let's see,
Right.
it undercut that viable gap up by probably reasonable amount of porosity. I don't know. You could have gotten whipped out of that. And then there was a pocket pivot a couple days ago. The problem that I don't like about any of these kinds of names, it's a 250. It's a micro cap. It's not even a small cap stock. It's a micro cap. And you know, so that makes it very thin and unattractive in this kind of environment. So I just look at a stock like this and think there's too much risk here, even though the fundamentals and technicals look good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you were buying a couple hundred shares, that's easy to handle. But we'd want to buy at least 10 or 20, and yeah, these stocks, forget it. You know, my general rule is you want to be 1 or 2% of the average daily volume in your position size just to be safe and be able to move quickly. So for my money, the bigger the greater the liquidity, the larger the average daily trading volume, the better. eBay, everybody loves eBay. Dr. K was one of the very first people I knew on eBay, and I believe you used it to buy like 200 Beanie Babies for my daughter, for Claire, when she was born. We still have those in a box somewhere. Are they worth a lot of money now, Dr. K? Should I put them back up?
Yeah, it's interesting. They've some of them went up in value. I don't know if they're still, if they held their value, if they're, I guess they'd be considered collectible among those types of enthusiasts. But I used eBay way back when to buy old copies of Wall Street Journal, Magazine of Wall Street, those types of publications, just for my own research purposes. And those have all gone straight up in value, including the October 1929 editions of the Wall Street Journal.
And I actually have some of those myself that you gave me, actually, I believe, for my birthday one year. And I still have some
Right.
worth a lot more, huh?
Yeah, apparently. I mean, I bought a bunch of these things in bulk from different people who were selling them out of the garage, and they were trying to get, like a little bit of a premium because they were old, and so I just bought them up. And then the last thing I saw, because I went back to eBay just to see if there are any more Wall Street Journals around, and if there's any that are made in October 1929, they're going for $100 or more.
Yeah. So, well, it's interesting. I got one of those, thanks to you. And eBay had a pocket pivot 4 days ago. So it's, moving slow. I mean, do you favor this one, Dr. K?
Well, eBay has been looking better and better. It had the gap up on the good earnings report. That was twice in a row, actually 3 times in a row. And it's a big name now, and it hasn't really had good price momentum. It's very rare for this thing to have good price momentum, so it doesn't really interest me on that sense. I don't see it having good price momentum going forward, but it might it's constructive enough to have an uptrend from here. It just doesn't excite me very much. The earnings and the sales, again, everything's kind of lukewarm on the stock, but things have been looking better. So if you want a low beta stock that is where you can make a little bit of money in, there's nothing wrong with eBay.
Kind of boring. I like Amazon better. Anyways, Pacira Pharmaceuticals, I tried playing this. Again, this is a very thin stock. Trades 217,000, I think it is. What is it? Maybe 324,000 a day. And, these are the guys with, I think it's Anabrel. It's a non-opiate painkiller for post-surgical pain, I suppose. We actually have a friend who just came out of surgery, and she's on Vicodin right now, which makes me nervous because it's addictive, but suggesting this to her. And these guys came out with earnings and had a nice pop here. That was a pocket pivot, and it came in. Now, people ask, what makes a pocket pivot work? What makes a pocket pivot fail? And in this case, I would say here's your pocket pivot, but notice how it holds the 10-day line pretty well and is able to come off and have another pocket pivot and break out to new highs. Now you're pulling back again. All of this, to me, looks pretty normal, and today's volume is relatively light. It's 81% below normal, so I would almost think this pullback could be viable, but it is a thin stock, and again, that's tough to play for us because you can't really get any size. And I remember messing around with it in here and trying to get some shares, and it just kind of wasn't really happening, so blew it off. But if you're inclined to buy something that's thin like this, I think they have a great story, and I think they do have real earnings growth. Well, only on an absolute level. They do have sales, 12.3 million sales, but this new drug is supposedly going to kick them into higher gear, but they're still losing money, so keep that in mind. And that's been the case for several of these.
I think the problem with the small caps is I mean, because when we put a recommendation out, if we were in a small cap driven environment, we would be reporting on small caps, even though we might not be able to play them because they're too thin. But if we're in that kind of environment, a lot of our subscribers can certainly make money off it, so we're going to report on those. But this environment we've been in for the better part of really since, the last couple of years has not been small cap favorable at all, especially this year. So it's just, PCRX is a biotech, so it kind of is on the outer edge of what we, it's a thin name, but we'll allow it because of the story and because it is a biotech. But that other name that we were talking about earlier, I mean, it's a $250 million company, so it's a microcap, and there's nothing particularly special about it, so it's just not going to make our filters in this kind of environment.
I hope you guys were paying attention to our cores discussion just a few minutes ago. You see the stock now is starting to push back. I think it's going to slingshot out of here myself. So, that 48 level, I got pretty much everything I wanted. Dr. K, just so you know, we have got 175,000 shares of that right now. Is that too much? I think we've got a 300% position right now. Are we okay on that?
That's all right.
Coinstar, Coinstar is putting itself up for sale, so you get a nice big gap up move. Would I short it? It was shortable here at the peak, I guess, but I don't know. Market looks like it wants to go higher, so I'm not sure. This may break down, but of course there's always a possibility now that they have hired a PE firm or a private equity firm to shop them around. I think that's potential for a rally, so I wouldn't mess with it. Either way. So anyways, but all I'd say about PCRX, just getting back to that real quick, the pocket pivots never really failed. So, and a pocket pivot only fails when it hits your stop, and oftentimes that depends on what your what you're using as your stop. So in this case, if you're using the 10-day here on this pocket pivot, you would have probably held in. But my view is it's just too thin. There are other stocks to play, and like I said, I'd rather go for big stocks right here, like Amazon now continuing 241.50 and now up $4 on the day. That's actually a 150% position right now. But let's see, Newstar. What is Newstar's? That's not N. Is it NUE? No. What is Newstar? NSTR? Somebody help me out here. What is this symbol? Somebody asked, when you look at fundamentals, are you looking at anything other than IBD ratings, such as cash flow, ROE? Well, I like ROE. I think profitability is a big indicator of future success or ability of a company to generate a long-term move, and you've seen that. I mean, I know Apple, Google, other stocks I've played in the past had pretty big return on equities. Don't really pay attention to PEG ratios, although you can sort of key a PE ratio to earnings growth and the whole concept. I mean, PEG ratios, price earnings growth, is probably more relevant than a strict PE ratio simply because it puts it in the right context, in that a stock's PE ratio is more indicative of the market's demand for its earnings stream. So bringing that right into line with earnings growth as a PEG ratio is probably more relevant than a PE ratio, but it's not anything.
Yeah, I've done some studies on PEG ratios, and they definitely can apply in better market environments. In more bullish environments, PEG ratios are a good metric because they just give you sometimes a sense of what companies can really move a lot higher, especially after a bear market.
Yeah, so it's more relevant, I think, than a PE ratio. Baidu too soon, Baidu too late, Baidu too, I don't know. It's coming up to the 200-day. It looks too soon to me. Dr. K, any take on Baidu?
Yeah, way too soon. Again, this pattern is pretty wrecked, so I'd like to see Baidu come back up toward, let's say, the 150 level, 140, 150, form some sort of handle or some sort of constructive action, and then have a pocket pivot from there. Then I might get more interested. But also Baidu is just, the general. It's been in a really long basing pattern. It's a pretty sloppy base, so it's gonna have to do more than just form a handle and have a pocket pivot. It's gonna have to do a bit more work to convince me that it's ready to break out.
Yeah, I would agree. It's too sloppy here. And I noticed NetEase is getting pummeled today, gap down on bad earnings. iSurge looked like it could be a short on a rally up to the 200-day moving average, but notice you're not really getting any selling in the pattern over the last few days, and it's continuing to move higher. There's a couple of things in here that might be problematic for shorts, and that is that, number one, after these breaks, it may be too obvious. Number two, the market's going up, in case you haven't noticed. And what that could set up is a sort of a pattern on a weekly chart where you do have these two breaks, but you rally up and you shake out below this low and you head back up in a big double bottom and then you break out again. So I'm not willing to short anything right now in this market, and this is the main reason. These are all the indexes up here on the left side of my screen, and they're all up pretty good. So I'm not really in the mood to short anything. Thoughts on TISI? Thoughts. It's in a cup with handle formation. Let's see, getting a little pocket pivot action. Team Inc. What is this? It doesn't hit my radar. Oh, I know why it doesn't hit my radar. It trades a whopping 65,000 shares a day. Too thin for my blood, but you got a pocket pivot today. Yeah, again. Do you use algorithmic trading strategies to enter your orders? Sometimes if we see, like for example, what I'm talking about, Coors would be an example possibly, where if we see something pulling in and we like it around 48, we'll just, and it's going to sit there for a while. And if you notice, Coors did this morning, you just kind of let an algo hang out there and just kind of catch shares and not really press it. Now we're starting to press it because the thing is moving up sharply, and to me, I think it's headed above the 50-day, not the 50-day, but the 50 price level, and so it looks really like potentially powerful here on this move, especially that it's making up most of the lost ground from earlier this morning. But no, we don't really use algorithmic trading strategies. Just kind of because we don't want to pay attention to it. Just let the robot deal with it. You know, and most everything you're just trading against other robots anyway, so let them all hang out together trading 100 and 200 share blocks, you know. GDX, is it time for GDX? I don't know, in time in terms of what? Miners look like, you know, junk to me, so I really wouldn't be there. I'd rather play the metal, and I don't think on that basis you just buy gold stocks willy-nilly. You got any thoughts on that, Dr. K?
Yeah, I'm not real interested in the sector at this point. I'd really like to see more constructive action before getting involved.
But the gold, you know, probably if we were going to play a move in the metals, we'd prefer the gold. I love this comment. TQQQ was my cherry breaker ETF, first buy signal since I joined. Now, see, there's an individual who's going to think that we can do no wrong. I can remember when I was a broker, and I remember in 1995, it was just as if I could do no wrong. It seemed like everything you bought in the text page just went zoom to the upside. Remember those wonderful days, Dr. K? But
I won the I remember I entered the Fidelity stock picking championships late, like quite late, more than halfway through the contest, and I was still able to finish in the top 15 out of like 5,000 entrants. It was pretty wild year.
But I remember you make 4 or 5 great calls and you have one right call, and boy, would they be all over you. But again, it speaks to this whole psychology of people reacting to the market in too personal of a way and thinking that whenever they lose money, somebody is an idiot or something. They got to scream at somebody, and I would say just check that. But Robert, you are probably going to think we're a genius, hopefully from here on out, because, or rather a pair of geniuses, because if the market direction model starts to work, and I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again, and I have no shame in saying this, is that when the market direction model doesn't work, it's Dr. K's market direction model, okay? When it does work, it's the VOSI market direction model, which includes me, okay? I just want you to know that. And so, Robert, I'm back on board with the MDM right now as long as the TQQQ keeps going up. So sorry, Dr. K. You know, I know I'm a fair weather friend, but you know how I've always been.
That's all good.
I never help you out when you really need help, right? No. Somebody says pre-market pulse rocks. Thumbs up on the morning report. Could you elaborate on algos? I don't really know. I can't elaborate on. I'm just telling you, we'll just set up an algo. If we want to buy a stock and we know it's just flipping around and trading around in a range, we'll just let the algo work it real slow. Because if you let Gil do the order, I'll buy 10,000 shares with one click and push the thing up $1. So that's, you know, I don't think you need to be crafty. It's more expediency in terms of we got 500 other things to do, so we're just going to let a computer work on buying this stock. I thought you had to be psycho to trade, somebody says. I think you, in a sense, you have to be inured to watching, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in some cases even millions of dollars, you know, shift in and out of your account on a daily basis. I remember when I was running 50, 60 million for O'Neill, and, you know, you'd see $1 million come and go in a day sometimes, and, you know, that was not necessarily the, you know, the easiest thing to watch at first, but you get inured to it, and you get inured to watching these big fluctuations in dollar amounts, which, you know, when you think about it, I know people who would freak out. They start trading, and I remember a couple of people at O'Neill who were relatively new at trading, institutional salespeople, and they come into my office like, oh my God, I'm down $2,000. That's my rent. You know, so they start thinking in terms of the money and the dollar amounts and what that means in the material world. And I think, in a sense, you have to be totally immune to that and insulated, inured to it, as I like to say. And so that does, compared to the regular population, I think it does make you a little bit psycho, because, you know, when I tell people, oh, my net worth can change a couple $100,000 or more a day, and oh my God, how do you handle that? So, but, you know, it's trading requires that you not pay attention to the dollar amount. So our rule is, how much should you invest in the market? Well, what can you afford to lose? Opinion on
scared money never wins. And it never will, because if you're reducing your winnings or losses in terms of into materialistic, you know, rent and, you know, car payments, mortgage, whatever, then that's just, the emotional attachment to the money is too great, and you're going to end up pulling the triggers just at the wrong time, either through greed or fear.
Anyways, so yeah, you do have to be somewhat psycho. Opinion on, we don't really have an opinion. I mean, it's a thin stock, so we don't really play here. I think if I was going to play these, I like the NSM breakout. This is kind of a, you would call this a flag, you know, it comes down one week and out to new highs. It's a little bit of 2 down and 2 up, though. And so, you come down on pretty good volume 2 weeks and then straight out to new highs in 2 weeks. So I would think at best this thing needs to pause, but apparently this is a big group move right now, and that HLSS is part of it, and I'm going to guess that BPFG is another one. But again, this doesn't really attract us because it's a little better. Trades 932,000, but it's extended for now, and I don't really see any big buy points in here. Do you, Dr. K?
No, I'm not interested in this one. I actually like that other one a little more, the FBHS.
Somebody says
we were talking about earlier.
Somebody looks forward to our morning report. What do we call it again? Morning market pulse or something?
Pre-market pulse.
Pre-market pulse. Yeah. I mean, after a couple of mimosas and a Bloody Mary, I'm just pumping away. So yeah, pre-market pulse. No, I'm just kidding. I actually don't drink very much at all these days. No time for it.
I don't think I've ever drank alcohol before, like 3 well, no, maybe 1 in the afternoon, like for lunch. That would have been the earliest. But the thought of drinking it when you wake up is just, I mean, it makes me want to vomit.
I mean, you never had beer and pizza for breakfast in college? What oh, you went to
Nope.
Berkeley. That's kind of like
Did the pizza thing, but was always like a nighttime thing, you know?
I like this one. Eating a healthy breakfast and reading the pre-market pulse is the best way to start your day. Wow. Now I feel like when I get up in the morning and do that thing at 4 a.m. that like it actually means something. I kind of thought of it as a throwaway, but we do cover some of the stocks that we talked about the previous day. So because it is sent out to non-subscribers, we do not put out any commentary or material that that we consider exclusive to subscribers. People are paying, and so that is late stuff. So
well, there was a couple of things that we didn't include today simply because they're still in buying range. So
right,
it wouldn't be fair for the members, to all of a sudden just talk about those stocks. But
right,
yeah,
totally agree. Anyways, let's see here. We're looking at Affymax. Affymax is holding in its flag. They came out with earnings, and the stock came off. I believe that was last week. And it's just holding up. So it's in a flag. It's closing okay along the peak here. So if you want to buy, remember, this is another biotech losing money, so keep that in mind. American Eagle Outfitters looks okay, acting okay. You had a pocket pivot, I believe, somewhere in here. I think it was right here, and it has moved up a little bit. Oh, wait a minute. I have to look at the daily chart. It's a little bit choppy, but there was a pocket pivot here. And it's chopping around, getting some support off the lows, off the 50-day moving average, but that's about it. I think for my money, if I was going to play a retailer, this is the one I want. So that's just my thinking. If you don't agree with me, buy AEO, and we'll compare notes later. Release date of new book. We're actually at this very instant, well, at this point in time right now, we're actually working through the final manuscript file, so making any final changes. And it should be out. It sounds like it's going to be out in September or October at the latest. I did notice that in the new files, Dr. K, it says copyright 2013. So does that mean it's delayed? I don't know, but I thought it was.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm not sure because everything I heard was Wally Fall lineup, and that was the big push. So that would seem to indicate September of this year.
Yeah. So that's what it seems like. So that's what we're thinking. Any tips on, oh no, don't get Dr. K going on this. Any tips on healthy eating and lifestyles to improve one's trading besides martinis?
Huh.
I don't know. Do we drink martinis? I probably have one a week maybe if we go out to dinner somewhere, but not too much. Like I said, drinking is kind of passé.
Well, you can also feel it inhibits your sleeping pattern, your REM sleep. And so you don't sleep as well, and then of course that carries over to the next day. So generally, a good rule of thumb is if you're going to drink, Friday night, Saturday night, that's you have a buffer, because you don't have to worry about the markets until Monday.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Let's see. Onyx, I don't really care for this. You had a viable gap up here. It's failing. But, of course, that was a second one, so it may need to build a base. I don't really care for it right now. TLT, Dr. K was noting that it looks like money is looking to come back into TLT. Is that right, Dr. K?
Well, it has been. I mean, there's institutional volume flow has been steady. Meanwhile TLT has been dropping. So there's a dichotomy going on here, telling you that it sounds like institutional money is expecting QE ahead. Therefore, they're supporting the TLT. They're buying TLT. and with the expectation that this accelerated form of QE will be able to keep bond yields down.
Right.
And the price up.
A couple other stocks. Okay, NSR is the new star. I think it's not an oil stock. These, I mean, there's a number of these that are acting well. I believe it isn't an oil stock.
Oh, it's a new star?
Infrastructure. I'm wrong. Yeah, it's coming up. It's forming a cup. It needs to form a handle, I think. So I'm not really a buyer here. Decent earnings growth, 47% in the most recent quarter, and let's see, 40% sales growth. So yeah, it looks. I mean, their fundamentals look pretty good. So I can't really fault it. But I think I might look for something. Let's see. We got a where there are no real pockets in here. This. It's hard. I think you're going to have to wait and let this, if you own it already, obviously you can sit with it, but I think you're going to come up to the peak here and probably have to form a handle or something right there. That's what I would think. NS is what? Somebody's asking about that. I'm not sure if that was, oh, that's another, that's the one I was thinking of. NS is the oil company. So this is an oil gas refiner, but I don't think that's the one they're talking about. NSR, everybody's coming in. NSM, we talked about NSM, and I talked about watching for that 2 down, 2 up sort of thing. ESRX is holding the gap up pretty well, volume lightening up. If you bought this one, I guess this would be your stop, but it's also the top of the base. So if that was your breakout point, let's use, I'm going to use this peak here, let's say 58.27, you're 61, so you're 3 points past. Yeah, so you're about within range of buying it here if you wanted to buy this when you like it. Slower stock, but you know, who knows? I don't know if this is one they're asking about. Okay, no, it doesn't look like it. Here, I want to put Amazon up again. CRM, Salesforce. They announced that they're buying some company or something. Put some more in social networking, which is what I guess the thrust of everything they're doing is right now. So it's not a stock I'm buying. I mean, you're still forming a base, and it's still pretty loose, pretty ugly. You know, this looks nasty as far as I'm concerned here. Let's see if I can I make it look tighter here? Maybe this helps. But yeah, that's a tough base to buy off of. Not looking good. Do you watch intraday charts sometimes? But nothing really significant. Have you covered PET M yet? We put that out as a Bible gap up. Whoops, not PM, but PET M. Bible gap. I don't know. I never really liked this company. Is this PetSmart? Yeah.
Yeah.
All I know is we've got a couple of aquariums, and every time my kids go to Petco and PetSmart to get fish, they die in a day. So the only place where we seem to get any good fish is at a place called The Aquarium locally that specializes in aquariums. So I say go with the specialist, blow these generalists off, and I don't know. I don't like this stock. How about you, Dr. K?
It's you know, it's a valid viable gap up. It's not something I'm buying, but some people might be interested in this kind of a name. You know, it's good enough. It's just good enough in this kind of environment, but it's a bit of a slow mover, and it tends to hit the 50-day quite a bit.
Yeah.
So expect it to violate the 10.
Somebody's asking about Royal Gold. I mean, if you're looking at gold stocks, this is probably one of the better ones, and I'd stick to the better ones if that's where you want to go. But I never really have thought much of these. In general, they don't tend to have coherent moves. They'll run up and then flop around. So if you do get a move through here, maybe it'll work. I don't know, but not anything I'm really looking at.
Yeah, I think the problem is that gold, GLD, you know, gold itself is in the middle of a basing pattern, and so as long as GLD stays in its basing pattern, these kinds of names are fighting headwinds.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we got to wrap it up here, Dr. We've gone for over an hour now, believe it or not. This went by fast, but a couple of questions. Someone's asking, is there some significance to the S&P moving to new highs other than the fact that it's moving to new highs, Dr. K? No.
Well, it encounters potential resistance up in this level as it approaches its old high of 1422. Especially, well, the volume today looks like it's going to be greater. So, you know, if we get accumulation day today, that's a good sign. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of headwind here and a little bit more back and forth. And if the back and forth is tight, that's great because that implies that the next move after that back and forth is going to be to new highs.
Yeah. So it all works. Nothing special though. Let's see. Are we going to present at the Traders Expo in Vegas this fall? I think we are, right?
November, right?
Yeah, and what we're doing this time, we decided to do something different. They like us to do these paid workshops mainly because the last couple that we've done have been the best attended of all of them, believe it or not. It's amazing if people actually pay $300 and whatever they charge to come in here and speak, and I can't even get my kids to listen to me speak a word, but that's another issue altogether when you have preteens, I suppose. But we are doing something different. We're actually going to be doing a complete 3-hour simulation where we're going to go through a whole bunch of stocks, doing simulations day by day and just using all of the different tools that we employ. So it's basically going to be 3 hours of going through simulations. We just wanted to be a real hands-on, where the rubber meets the road sort of thing, and hopefully it provides a lot of value. We've gone over pocket pivots and viable gap-ups, the 7-week rule, and everything else, short selling and everything else that we do in other workshops and webinars online and at the Money Show and at the Traders Expos. That this time we really wanted to do something nitty-gritty. And it's not really clear how much longer we'll be presenting there. I suppose as long as people keep showing up, we'll go. But Vegas, to me, kind of gets old after a while very quickly. But, yeah, we are going to be there in November. So let's see. I want to just some other stocks. XXIA, IXIA, it's had a viable gap up here. It's a thinner, cheaper stock. Viable gap up, but if you wanted to play it, this would be your stop below here at 14. So, you're about 4% above that right now, so it's holding up okay. It just acts okay. The book will be available in ebook fashion. Dr. K, I'm going to let you finish off with a little discussion of your favorite topic, the VIX and the TVIX, and where that all is right now.
Okay, well, the VIX, as I've said before, the VIX will not necessarily, it often will not correlate with VIX-related ETFs over a time scale of several days. On a day-to-day basis, there's general correlation. So if you see the VIX up, you're going to see the TVIX and the UVXY up. Not all the time, but there's a rough correlation that holds out. And the model, the UVXY model, is of course aware of all of that, takes that into account. Because the market has been so quiet, the UVXY model, it wants to see more volatility. That's really where it tends to thrive, and so it needs to see some sort of market action in one direction or another before it releases its next signal.
Okay, I just wanted to point out, just in closing, that LinkedIn is starting to get above the 50-day moving average, and I would not be surprised to see this thing turn from here. So we talked about it about half a point lower at the outset of this webinar, and it's pushing higher. So, we went over what we liked, and so I think, some of the buys of the day are Amazon, which hopefully you bought earlier, Coors, which is acting pretty well, and that would be the stock I'd be looking at to play, and several of the others that I talked about in the webinar. So that's really all we have and all we have time for. We've done over an hour now. So thanks for showing up, you guys. Hopefully it's helpful today. And that's about all I have. So take care.
So long, everyone.